What's up, everybody? How's it doing? Welcome to the Beyond Time YouTube channel. We have Throttle Thursday. I'm going to say this is like episode 1 because this is really the set in stone one that we planned for. But I want to welcome my guest this evening, Primo from the Executive Automotive Society. How you doing, man?
I am doing excellent. Happy to be back for the first show. Back for the
first show, the first official show. And we'll see how these go. I thought. Again, it started out kind of as a car channel, and I've been talking to you a lot lately and said, let's experiment and try to do some of this to give some shake up on the channel. I know there is tons of watch channels right now and lots of live streaming and watch streaming. I think that's great, but hey, we'll try something different over here too. So
yeah, as long as you're okay with me looking like a slob today, it is what it is. So, but yeah.
You look fine. You look fine. So what's been going on, man? How's your channel? How's the car scene going right now? Is it pretty quiet this time of year?
No, it's been crazy. Like everything, everybody's trying to put together. A lot of stuff. It's a thing because we're at that perfect like spot where a lot of stuff isn't announced. So there's stuff that I can say, but I can't say anything. So I've got at least 4 shows right now I'm working on right now that are basically in the like announcement phases, and some are kind of in the planning phases. So it's kind of pre-planning. But yeah, and then there's some shows that kind of like, it's so funny because now I have groups. Before I'd work with a group, we'd have something going, and then we would have a group that's friends with a group that need help doing stuff. So they'd be like, do you want to run this or do you want to do this? Because I can do very well with the classes and, the trophies and that kind of thing, and making sure it looks, 100% professional, but it still comes back to that, they have to run it. So that's kind of weird for me because I'll say, I'm going to announce something, and they'll be like, well, we want to announce it. We want to talk about it. So I'm like, okay, you guys can do your thing and make it your little baby. So yeah, I'd like to announce a lot of stuff, but it'll have to wait until they actually officially.
Do you think car shows are going to come back pretty strong this year? I know the last 2 years they've been a little suppressed, and I think there was a pretty good run of some of the local stuff that I was watching this year. People had their certain meets around the New England area, but do you think that it's going to come back bigger this year?
Oh yeah. So last year we really got hammered for shows, but it was almost like we did a false start. So like if you did the Bass Pro show, that show got cremated with tons of people. But then as things were happening, we were still getting this thing about like the Board of Health showing up and saying, you guys can't do stuff. It was probably about 3 or 4 shows in before the Board of Health didn't, and they would show up. That was the crazy thing about it. So it was kind of like pressurized to make sure that people had masks and junk like that, or they were like, well, we're going to shut you down. And a lot of people did have late starts this year. There's been a lot of stuff talk about. Yeah, I mean, things are big right now, but we really think that they're going to die off. So we're going to get into the summer. Once we hit April and May, I think that a lot of this stuff will be really toned down. And there comes a point when people just like, look, we want to do stuff. And you know what I mean? They're going to do it now because
they're going to do it anyway.
Right. And they're going to lose money if they don't. So nobody's going to stop them.
So I get a couple of chats here I want to get to really quick. Perth Luxury is a really great friend of mine. If you guys haven't gone over, make sure to go over and check out his YouTube channel. He does Watch Talk and also whiskey reviews, which is really great. So he's asking straight, and you probably won't get this humor, but it's people that come on the channel. So strange car related question: which car, in your opinion, has the best horn just for Mr. GM teen in it? Best horn on a car. Oh God.
Yeah, that's a tough one. See, that's
I like my Beamer horn because it's not like it's so not masculine, and I think it's funny every time I use it. Like come on, man.
Go back to Ferrari horns. Those are the ones that like it's like embarrassed to use it, But I have to say, if I was gonna pick a horn, it would be the old Model T horns, the Ooga.
Ooga. Yeah, or the just the Lamborghini horns, those classic like Countach, horn that that very light Euro. So and I got JJ and Gentleman's Hangout podcast. Hey man, he was in my face. I'm in your face. This is definitely a Fast and Furious reference. So good stuff there. And if you guys haven't gone over, please go over and check out Gentleman's Hangout podcast.
Nobody eats the tuna, but they do go to Gentleman's Hangout.
Yeah, that's right. No one likes it. And another Fast and Furious comment: roads closed, pizza boy. Find another way home from my buddy Mike B. Thanks.
Does Mike B know that the person that's the pizza boy was actually the director for that movie?
Yes, yeah, that's Craig Lee. No, that was Ron. What was his name? Not Craig. Craig Learman was the car guy.
Yeah, Nick Moore, Neil Moritz was the producer, and I cannot remember the director's name right now to save me.
Rob Cohen.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Rob Cohen. So good stuff. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I wanted to do kind of a timeline of the import car scene and kind of leading up to Fast and Furious, and obviously that was a big elevation, to hit that, the Japanese import car scene and hit it here in America. So I have actually a bunch of notes that I took today, and I know I sent you some notes over too, but
yeah,
I wanted to take us through. So obviously, like 1970 in the early 80s over in over in Japan, you had a lot of the car modifying scene, and they were making their own car parts and modifying, Hondas and Civics, Toyotas, Nissan, Mazda. And then, some of that culture side kind of spin in over into the 80s. And what I wanted to talk about first was, you had those mid 80s TV shows that were just so solely based on cars. And, a lot of that, Knight Rider, Dukes of Hazzard, The Fall Guy, A-Team, Magnum PI, Miami Vice, all those.
Don't forget GoBots, Transformers. What else? There was another one.
Actually, yeah, they would be car related shows.
The guy that changed into was a guy, and he was hit by some bolt or something, and he could actually change into an '83 Trans Am. Like he'd actually just morph it. I was like, what were we thinking back then? Like it's crazy.
Even, what was it? Mask, the cartoon.
Yes,
that was all car
God,
related.
yeah.
So I'm trying to think, like, what do you think was the spawn for that? Was that just because, do you think that, what am I trying to say here? Do you think that because there wasn't a lot of things in kids' culture at that time, they were trying to kind of, get people into cars, and the American muscle car was very big at that time, but, you're seeing kind of this push, and, you saw, toys, and I mean, there's so much stuff that we collected back then.
And I think that was the big thing is that a lot of people learned a very important lesson from George Lucas. And that was kind of that. It's so funny because I was young and it still reverberated with me, was that he had kept all the rights to all the stuff that he had. So when he sold his products, so what these guys are making movies started, or making shows or anything, realized, especially with GoBots, Transformers, all that stuff, is that there was a market there that could be, and I don't want to use the word exploited, but it really was what it was. You could sell the stuff to kids, and then, I watched it on Saturday and Sunday morning, they were going to some store and buying the product for it. And I don't think that really works for think about cars. Like you have Matchbox, Hot Wheels, models, metal, anything in there. I mean, there's a reason that they still made a Pixar Cars movie now, was because this stuff always does well as some kind of toy product in the secondary. How many other Pixar movies do you go out and find a character where you can sell something and go, okay, I want the Sully doll. It's a plush. It's nothing, but you can sell $5 Pixar cars by the boatload, and people will buy them,
It's crazy though too. As much as like they tried to focus on the actors in their shows, it really was like the car was like the more central focus. That's what people knew the show for. I mean, yeah, you knew who the A-Team was, but that badass van that they always drove in. You knew Knight Rider, but you always knew, you knew Michael Knight, but it was Kit was really the star of that show.
Starsky and Hutch, Ghostbusters, it was so funny. We had the Beetle, the Love Bug. There was like two other DMC DeLorean. It was so funny that if you've seen that truck picture with all the cars that are there were these movie cars that are on the back of this truck, and a guy took a picture of it and he goes, "Hey, look, my childhood just drove by." So yeah, that's what it was. It was we identified as this vehicle culture because it was what they sold us, and it worked. I don't have a problem with it.
Real quick, I want to get to some of these chats really quick.
Model
So
T,
Jeff
yeah.
Lane, that just became a new member. I do want to appreciate that. And he was actually agreeing with the Model T horn. Perth Luxury saying the Mercedes 600 big grosser horn.
Yeah. Mhm.
Michael B talking about Mass. He said, Mass made me think of every Matchbox with doors openly could fly. Absolutely. Let's see. I think Basil's bezeled is blocked. It's strange, Mike. I'll take a look at that after the show. You shouldn't be blocked. You should be fine. Gentlemen's Hangout, JJ saying Beyond Time is going to be running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines on top of that. Just came to JJ's, just ordered 3 T66 turbos with NOS and a Motec exhaust system. And if anybody knows about that movie, all of that was complete bullshit. They made all of that up.
Yep. And by the way, Gentlemen's Hangout, you're not a what do you call it? Snitch, are you? You're not gonna be telling about those engines.
Yes.
He's a narc.
And Jeff Lane saying, yes, the Duke's a hazard, of course. And Mike just saying when Knight Rider almost died is when he was dipped in acid.
Well, what was the, okay, here's a good question for everybody. Who was in Knight Rider, Kit was the main guy.
Right.
And he had the little flashing lights. And then there was a secondary car that was made.
It was the evil car that they had.
What was the name of it?
And the name of that car, oh man. I gotta Google that. Hang on. I gotta Google it.
There's this little stuff that gets you.
Was it car, wasn't it? It was just car, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think it was called Car. Evil car in Knight Rider. I think it was called Car.
Yeah, probably it was. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was Quit. It was Car. It was Car. C-A-R-R.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's what I thought. And the voice for that was Peter Cullen that did that voice.
Nice. I just, every time I think of the guy from St. Elsewhere doing the voice for Kit, and it was just like he would play the doctor and he was playing Kit, and it was like this, my brain would not wrap around it. I was just like, like Higgins being the, with the Ferrari, and it's like, no, he doesn't do that. It's the other guy. So it's like, yeah. Oh,
so JJ said, sorry, I'm only going to be speaking your Fast and Furious quotes tonight.
I live that way, buddy. So keep bringing. Oh, look, Michael's ahead of it.
So anyway, so you come out of the 80s, you have all that, you have all those car related shows. Then like the early 90s start spawning some movies. You have Days of Thunder, you have Ronin with that famous, BMW M5 chase scene versus the Audi S8. Then you have the Tomorrow Never Dies with that BMW chase scene. So you start seeing that import culture really starting to hit. You move out from American muscle, and now you start seeing kind of the premiere of BMW. They're bringing in the German brands and more of that import scene. Right around that time, about 1996, I buy my Dodge Avenger. I thought this was like this cool looking car. It kind of had that Mitsubishi look, it was kind of an Eclipse, but it was longer and, and it was sleeker. And I actually ended up joining a group called ASOG, which is the Avenger Sebring Owner Group.net. And it was this community board that you could go into. Yes, we had community boards back then because there was no Facebook and stuff like that.
Forums.
Forums. Yeah. And getting in there, it was like, just seeing how all these guys were modifying their cars, but there were no parts, and people were making their own parts and modifying, making body kits and using literally like chicken wire, like thick chicken wire to make front grills and stuff. It was pretty crazy stuff.
And the Avenger was a tough car to work on too. There was not a lot of support for which engine did you have?
It was a Mitsubishi engine. I had the V6.
Okay, it
was a partnership between Dodge and Mitsubishi. Right. They ran it was a V6 in mine. They did have a 4-cylinder as well, but I had the V6 version of it.
You didn't want the 4-cylinder because the 4-cylinder was the one. The 2.5 had huge gasket issues and blew up at 60,000 miles. Yeah. Everybody wanted the 6, so
I think mine was like it was the V6. I think at that time was like 210 horsepower or something like that. And you thought you were like badass if you had that back then. Yep. So, but it was crazy because then, these guys started trying to make turbo kits. And I remember this one guy down in Arizona, he had a shop down there and he was trying to twin turbo one of the 6 cylinders. And he actually made it actually successful at one point, and then opened up, like you could literally, drive or trailer your car down. You'd pay him a couple of grand. The car would have to be like a week, and he would program. It was just this, the crazy shit that you had to go through back then to get horsepower versus how instantaneously it is today. I mean, you can literally just plug in a laptop and gain 100 horsepower in your car now. It's crazy.
And that's what a lot of people didn't know, that a lot of these tuner guys we had, I live my life a quarter mile at a time. Nothing else matters.
I had a 96, Mike. I had a 96.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and that was the between Rhode Island and Connecticut was this kind of tuner area that they were building specific turbos for specific build kits. So if you needed something for a naturally aspirated Eclipse, they had it. I'm not saying these things made a lot of horsepower, because they couldn't, because of the way the engines were not made to be done that way. But yeah, you could buy all sorts of crazy. It just got crazier and crazier as time went along. So
yeah. So then, like, I'm trying to think. So 96, I started getting into this group. It was like 97, 90. Now you start hearing in the forum about Nopi Nationals down in Atlanta, Georgia. And that really was like, wow, this, like, what is this stuff that's going? Now this is all like, people understand, this is like 97, 98, 96, 97, 98. This is pre Fast and Furious. So you're starting to see now that West Coast, that Japanese import West Coast culture that has hit California and been there for quite a few years, has now come over, and it's starting to trickle into the East Coast. And you're seeing, Atlanta, you're seeing, New York. I think, was it Vibe magazine that dropped the Racer X?
Yes.
The Racer X article.
Big article.
Yeah. And brought the underground, New York race scene kind of to the forefront of everything.
Right.
So that's like 98, 99. And around that time is when Rob Cohen the director of Fast and Furious, starts hearing about the New York, underground race scene. And of course, he's familiar with California. So that's 98, and starts thinking about doing this movie called Redline. If people don't know, Redline was the original name of the Fast and the Furious movie. So 98, 99, you have the casting. They start doing the principal filming in 2000. I think the movie shot for about 4 months, and the release date is what was it, in June? I think they did the release, because I remember it was in the summer when I went to see it.
Yeah, I want to say June. Yeah. Was it 2001, right?
2001. And they went into this like completely like, this is probably not going to make any, like, people aren't interested in this. This ain't going to make any money. They released the movie and it ends up grossing $200 million.
My favorite line to this day is Craig Lieberman said, he goes, it was not that people went in, one person. It wasn't that, so it's like 200 million. It wasn't 200 million people that watched the movie. It was 100 million car guys watching it 10 different times or something like that, was the way he worded it. It's like, when you watched it, there was just nothing out there like it, and nothing that supported basically our car community the way it had. So I think I saw the movie like 5 times at least. So
I did. I remember seeing it probably 3 or 4 times in the theater. And to this day, I still watch it once or twice a year. It's still a great movie. And the thing that I have to say that they did really well in that movie is they did a very, very, very great job of balancing the actors or characters with the cars. Not only were the cars the central focus of the movie, they did such a great job with the actors as well. And you got to think, that movie is a very low budget movie. I mean, they actually commissioned, like, if people don't know, they actually commissioned the resident kids of that area, to commission their cars for the movie.
Well, they went back in. Yeah, they went back in for that budget. At least I think it was 3 times. Every time it got shot down, there came a point when the parts that they were getting for the movie, they literally just called up, because Craig Lieberman, who was the director, technical director for the film, for the car side of it, he was working with different groups at the time, and he was a manager for something. I forgot what exactly company was, but he was friends with them and a lot of these Japanese guys. So he would call them up and say, hey, can you spare this? Can you spare that? and they would kind of make these little handshake deals. Unlike most of your marketing
Right.
today, you're like, hey, I want my Coke to show up, 20 million, whatever, and we'll put the Coke in. These guys were handshake deals just so they could get the movie made, and all the body kits, all the stuff they got for free. It's like, and just to say, okay, make sure we're featured and put us out there. So,
and then after the movie, they had to get their parts back. I remember him talking about that. Like they had to get stuff back. So Lieberman's the Supra, the orange Supra that's in the movie, that was Craig Lieberman's, right?
that's his.
Correct?
Yeah, I think it was yellow before, but when they did it for the movie, they painted orange and put the body kit on it.
Yeah, and I think that his car, that exact car, recently just went up for auction, and they were showing that actually when you open certain parts of the car, you can still see the yellow that was under the door jamb, or whether the trunk or whatever.
You'd have, I think it's changed hands at least 3 times, but he always knows where it's at. So
he actually currently, I think, is rebuilding one on his channel right now. They're doing another. I've been dipping on there and looking.
Yeah, there was a guy that a lot of people have been interested in doing these model remakes, especially for the Eclipse. That's been huge. A lot of the parts, like the wheels, they don't make anymore. So he's been working with a bunch of guys, and I guess that what happened was that there's one group or one guy out there that's just phenomenal, that he is all about doing it right. And he was like, I'm going to work with this guy and do something with him. And what's coming out of it is going to be amazing. I hope that it'd be great to see more and more of these movie cars. And, he knows the cars in and out. Like he's just so technically oriented and knows like every part. He can tell you what's fake, what was real. And so always good.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys search even YouTube, you can find out where a lot of these cars have gone. The stunt cars, where the hero cars are now. I think some of them, it's weird. Like some of them, they'll just sit for like 10 years and then they'll pop up somewhere in the desert. I think they just found the truck, the Lightning.
Yes,
was it Ford
yes, that's right.
They just recently found that, and it was painted. Yeah, it was painted like black or something. Yep. It was all the headlights have been changed and all that. Some guy just got that, and he's going to restore it and bring it back to movie condition. So it's pretty cool. It's cool.
They found the suit. Was it Stunt 2 for the Supra and sold it? And it was so funny because it's a naturally aspirated automatic.
Yeah,
and then it sold for like 200,000 at Barrett last year or something like that.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was watching a video just recently. The gear shifter, it was automatic, but they put in like a manual shift, and just left it unlinked for the movie, so it looked like they were shifting gears and stuff like that. So
I didn't hear about that. Funny.
Yeah. So anyway, so you had like this burst of the Fast and Furious. Now it starts spawning all these movies like Gone in 60 Seconds, The Italian Job, The Transporter, Drive, and this really big boom of all these car movies. So you still have this heavy presence of car culture, 70s, 80s, 90s, kind of had a little bit of a dip, and now it's ridiculous. And now it starts spawning all these movies. What do they have? 9 Fast and Furious movies now? Mm-hmm. It's insane. And it's interesting how, the early 2000s, you had so many of those movies come out, and it's really the franchise that's kind of held on has been Fast and Furious, but you're not seeing any more, different movies trying to capture that. And I'm wondering, why that is. Do you think it's just
because simply put, and this is something I talked to Craig about, this was a while ago too. We were talking about like, hey, what does it take to make another car movie? And you have to realize the difficulty of actually making, for instance, Gone in 60 Seconds, or the difficulty of making a movie like Fast and Furious now. And he was even saying, he's like, we really couldn't even pitch a movie like that right now, because the market and the way things go for demand, people, that's why Fast and Furious, well, it's funny that I was just gonna say that, was the reason to think about them, how much the movies made before, when they were just car movies and the cars were the focus, compared to what they made in, I want to say, part 4, when it suddenly became action pieces, and suddenly it was millions, and now billions, and now right now they set records making them, and they've gone to space. So it's actually become so, I'm going to say the word, it's gotten so stupid. And that's why there comes a point when people just watch it because they want to watch the chaos of what they're going to do next. Is Vin Diesel going to, cure the sick or something crazy like that? But that was the thing is that's what people wanted. So to Sell a car movie today, you'd have to literally make something that made Gone in 60 Seconds look like a walk in the park. And the thing is the cars that we had back then, especially like the 90s was some of the, and I just did this on my chat the other day, was the cars of the 90s were the 90s was probably the best time forever to be a car guy. And then going into the 2000s, when we had the car movies, we had car cruises, we suddenly had the internet, we were able to do pop-up meets, rallies were huge. Like I literally fell over stuff. Like I would just be talking to somebody someday and just be like, oh, there's Steve Saleen. Like what? Like we had a couple of guys go down to if you go down to what do you call it, the castle down there in Newport right now, and you go at the right time, there's a good chance you're going to hang out with Jay Leno.
Jay Leno, he's
Right.
there all the time.
Right. So it's like you came a point when these people were all in one spot. They were so predominant. They were really trying to sell their brands. And today we're going into this time where it's like, how do you sell something when people are trying to double back from it? Do you get what I'm saying? And then we're moving into a new generation of type of cars and you know, fighting a pandemic, and we're doing all this other stuff. Where would a car movie fit right now? And that's the thing, isn't in somebody that's a director or somebody like that, or producer, is going to ask some very difficult questions of your screenplay if you were to pitch it. And a lot of them, and trust me, a lot of these movies get pitched. I know there's car movies that have been pitched. Even some guys, the big names out there, have pitched stuff, and about the only thing you get is Ford versus Ferrari, because that's, you see what I'm saying? That can sell seats. But is it a car show, or is it a story about Carroll Shelby and, you know what I mean, that kind of thing?
Do you think modern cars just got, you know, like modern cars now are too boring? They just don't have that character. They don't have that character anymore.
Yeah, it was, I want to say it was around 2005, 2006 that people just kind of, the people that were tuning and doing stuff with cars, especially with like that tuner scene, they just kind of, I don't want to say lost interest, but they went from, you know, these turbo cars to stuff like a naturally aspirated 7th gen Celica, the RSX, the Scion TC, you know, this stuff that just wasn't exciting and wasn't competitive, versus, you know, 93, when you're like, okay, I have an Acura NSX and you have a Ferrari F355. Let's go on the track and see who's the fastest. And there's a good chance that NSX could win that battle. Today, I don't think your Scion TC is going to go, and not to say that it's a bad car for those that own them. I think they're kind of cool, but that you will admit that they're underpowered and they're not going to go out and win any races against any muscle car anytime soon. So
it's crazy, because I even remember MTV getting in on it. I think it might have been a year or two, maybe after, or right around Fast and Furious. They had they were doing that True Life series, and they had one as True Life, I'm a Street Racer. And they were featuring all these guys out in California doing, you know, illegal street racing. And it was so funny. These guys are spending like, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars on their car. And I'm like, that car probably has like 250 horsepower in it, because you couldn't generate horsepower, like, you know, big horsepower back then.
And that was the thing too, is as Craig was talking about, he goes, when they got done with Fast and Furious, I think it was around Tokyo Drift time or whatever, he was like, they would pitch something and for a TV show, and the guys that were running the shows from that era would look over and say, we've been pitched 6 shows just like this. So we have to determine which one. And it's a lot like Stacey David Gears, all these other little shows in it about tuning and working on cars and stuff like that kind of still have traction today. All got their start in that time frame. So,
hey, Design, how are you, man? Thanks for popping in and joining the show. Yeah, it's crazy. And that's, you know, that's why I just sit here and think, like, you had you know, even like, you know, MTV was doing stuff. You had the rise of Mischief in Techademics. You know, it was like 2002. They were featuring the Gumball. Christ, they even did what was it when who were the guys, the Jackass guys? They did a show where they did the Gumball with all those guys. You know, it's crazy. We had so much car stuff on TV, and now it's just completely gone away. And they even tried, I think, in like 2008, 2009 to bring back Knight Rider, and they did a 2-hour pilot for it. It just didn't take. And that's really when I started to see kind of the cars, the car movies and car scene kind of fall off at that point. It's kind of sad. It's disappointing.
We still see a pretty good presence when it comes to, I want to say, per se, like social media side of it. People are actually interested in doing crazy stuff still. In other words, I'm gonna put this big engine in the wrong spot, or somebody saying I'm gonna put the guys that just did that was a huge hit when they took I want to say they had an LS motor, put it in a Tesla, and then went to get an oil change for it. And the guy's like, well, this is an electric car. And he's like, well, it's funny because the guy told me it was something, it needed an oil change or whatever. And he starts it up and it's like, it's revving. And the guy's like, why is this? So they bring it in the shop and everybody's just like, it's Tesla, dude. So I think there is, I mean, obviously, and then let's look at Top Gear, for instance. Top Gear didn't work, but James May and Jeremy Clarkson and what's his name there, they can still do their show, and that show is a huge hit. So I think the idea of maybe it's something that we as car guys are kind of looking for. And I think a lot of times the stuff like mainstream media usually misses us. Yeah, Foose is the man.
Dude, remember? I want to go back to this. So go ahead, finish your point, and then I want to go back to this.
No, we don't see, like, regular media. That was a big thing of criticism about Fast and Furious. They didn't get a lot of tech specs right. And a lot of the times they didn't listen to Craig Lieberman. And his ideas, if you listen to him, were like, wow, I wish I'd seen that in the movie. That would have worked. But the thing is what sells on media and what sells to car guys is oftentimes, polar opposites. So it's one of those things that's saying we need to have something that speaks our language is really what we want.
Yeah, and then you got to think though too. You had was Discovery did American Chopper. Orange County Choppers was huge back then, and then you had American Hot Rod, which was Boyd Coddington's shop, which is literally one of the most toxic environments I think I've ever seen. I'd probably even say it was worse than American Chop, and I get it. They drum up drama and stuff like that to make things look, because it's scripted reality, but.
Well, now it's Rust Brothers on Netflix, and then they have that other show on Netflix, which is the race cars, the cars that race against each other. So they take 3 done up cars and they put it against the supercar. And I've heard that was doing really well. So, I mean,
Yeah. So maybe I was a little naive to this, to think like we're not getting car content, but there really still is. But I think these networks and creators are gotten smart. They're taking things to YouTube now. They're taking things to Netflix now, Instagram, whatever, and they're doing their shows there. And I mean, it all makes sense because, excuse me, people are not going back, not going to the movies like they used to. People are not watching TV like they used to. I mean, I don't even think I turn my TV on anymore. My TV is like 50 years old. I don't care. I watch everything on YouTube.
But I still think you're right, though, is that, like I said, if we made right now literally the perfect screenplay and we pitched it to every producer we knew and we actually had connections so we could actually get to voices and people that mattered, I don't think it'd ever get picked up. And I think that same problem is going to happen in most of the mainstream television that does not. So you're never going to see, what is it, Channel 7 and Channel 3 and whatever the main channels there are never going to pick up your awesome car show, no matter how awesome it is. You're not going to wake up on Saturday morning and see a cartoon that's going to be some kind of car thing. It's going to be very niche. It's going to be in a niche market, and it's going to be on something like either Netflix Limited or it's going to be on some sort of social media platform.
But why did this happen? We had such this, you know what I mean? We had this 30-year run. And I go back, I was born in 78. So the 80s was my thing. So 89, 2000s, we had such, I'd say 25 year, maybe 30 year of run of all these fantastic things. And then the big Fast and Furious boom in 2001. And then all of a sudden, like I said, about 2008, everything just falls off.
And then think about the cars then. So like say for the 60s, 70s and 80s, I could get out. And even with the cars being as underpowered as they were, I could look at a Trans Am. I could look at a Corvette. I could look at the old Mustang. I could look at a Chevelle. I could do an Impala. Everything was 350, 454, huge engines. We even still had lead in our gas, you know what I mean, for a while. Yeah. So it was like, it was a different, you could make a ton of power with a wrong setup. And there was so many aftermarket things that came out of that time. Let's think about the reason that McLaren was successful. Even think about the GT, like GT40, DB5, all these legendary cars that came out of those times really kind of fueled it. And then the 80s hit and we got a lot of bad cars, and we were still kind of, like you were saying, keeping up with that compact thing, which domestically we did not do a very good job of keeping up with Japan on that.
Right.
And then 87 hit, and the NHTSA was formed, and now we can't have gray market cars anymore. And I think that was the thing is we can, we can't go faster than 55, even though, we learned quickly that was a dumb idea. You started getting this choke. We did start feeling this choke that happened. And I think that's kind of the thing that we're kind of feeling now is there comes a point when, if I do a drive right now, if I do a rally, I'm going to have some sort of police escort. Because if I drive as a group right now, there's going to be somebody someplace that's going to complain that we sound loud and we could potentially be going fast. Right. When at the last one we did, there was we talked to the police officer, and there was 155 calls about our run. Think about that first. I mean, there wasn't even no big group, but I'm like, well, how many calls? 155. I was like, what? He's like, yeah, it's a slow day, so you're good. But like, we weren't speeding, we weren't doing it. Like, we're just having a leisurely little thing to get together. It was all organized, and still you have people that get a little bit more. What is it? How's the word? Is like they don't like it. They don't like you having fun. So, and I think it's worse up here than in other areas, but who could know for sure without testing? So.
Yeah, didn't we go through a period of time where the government was stepping in and cars couldn't go over like 85 miles an hour? Your speedo would only go to like 85 or whatever.
No, I don't remember that one. I do remember everything was getting speed limit. Like BMW started making no car could go over 147. It was like was weird cap. Why 147? Like, why was that the number? Like, I never understood it. But and even today, like we were looking at I think it was a Bentley or something, and they were like, yeah, it can do 202, but it's speed limited at this.
Yeah, they even started doing that in NASCAR too, the restrictor plates. And remember when it was like a big thing when it was a restrictor plate race, but then the races that didn't, they would say it was a they didn't have the, and everybody was, oh my god, because they're gonna go over 200 miles an hour.
Right. And even the racers hated restrictor plates, so
hated them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool, and I think just you have to think though too, you going back to that, the mid 2000s, 2005 and up, a lot of those Marvel movies started coming out too. So you had X-Men and all that. So I think that was starting to take a place of car culture movies as well too. That probably had some influence on it.
I'm wondering how much of the because a lot of cars, and I don't know if you remember this from like I want to say 2000s to 2008, 2009. A lot of these manufacturers had budgets, and these budgets could be very good for, like, for instance, Walking Dead was sponsored by Hyundai when it first came out. So all the cars that had a nameplate were Hyundais. I thought it was so weird, Walking Dead Hyundai. But yeah, but if you look at, for instance, Avengers, Audi R8, that was Tony's car. That was a sponsored car. They paid to have that car in there. And there was a lot of other brands that I've seen for Mercedes, Audi. I wish I could remember all the brands. And I'm like, remember, do you remember so the Transporter was based off of another series that was actually made by BMW. And then Mercedes got on board and did, I think, one or two. They didn't have the same kind of success, but yeah, those are really cool movies that just, we're going to make something fun. And back then there was no YouTube. So I don't know who they sold these videos to, but obviously they had something on their website, but we don't see that today because I think the budgets are so tight that they don't have the money.
Yeah. People don't want to spend money anymore. That's the thing. Right. People don't want to spend money anymore. A lot of these companies aren't getting those big budgets like they were, but it's fascinating to think, and even going back to Fast and Furious, that wasn't a high budget movie. No. I'm going to actually see if I can find out what the budget was. I'm going to say it probably less than 20 million, maybe. Let's see, budget for Fast and Furious 1. It was 38 million.
Yep.
I mean, in movies back then, it's not really a lot of money. I mean, Hollywood would spend, $100 million in putting something together back then.
38 million for a return of 207.3 million.
Yeah,
that's the way to do it.
So I have a question from Perth Luxury. Favorite car scene from a giant James Bond movie: Living Daylights, or Tomorrow Never Dies, or Die Another Day, or something else? Perhaps. Mine's Tomorrow Never Dies. I love the BMW chase scene. I love that.
I mine's not a chase, but it's the one I want to say it was Famke Janssen. So she had the Ferrari 308. So I think it was the 308 versus the DB5. I think it was, and that was just such a cool scene to see them both. They're revving at each other and like trying to one up each other. That was GoldenEye, actually, wasn't it? GoldenEye. So maybe it was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Mike was saying the old Fox Body Mustangs, they had a limit 85 limit on the speedo. Yeah. That's crazy.
That's weird. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it would be nice to start seeing some car movies again. But I think just Fast and Furious kind of put their stamp on that, and I think that's where a majority of all these budgets are going to go now. And are they making another one now?
I want to say they are, yeah. And I don't think they're going to stop as long as they keep making money. They're Avengers Part 2, basically. You know what I mean? They have their own thing, and that's I'm now there's a Hobbs and Shaw, which I'm vested in. That's not even literally a car movie, but you think about like Transporter mixed with Fast and Furious. Now we got those two things. I would really like to see, and I thought it would do okay, would be the Transporter stuff coming back and have that kind of, but be more with that car thing and be that continuous chase. The other thing that happened was, and I think it really hurt us, was the Need for Speed movie came out, and that movie was just, it was bad. Like it just, a lot of stuff. They took
the games were great.
Yes.
You could play the games, they were amazing.
Right. But that was the thing is when they got the story, there was a lot of just holes and just nobody was vested. It was definitely not written by a car guy per se. Like Racer X was written by a car person.
Car guy.
And we really fueled it. And then when you get to this movie, it's like, oh yeah, that's definitely like a big Hollywood person that's not really thinking about the story. Do you remember that movie that was actually called Redline?
They made one eventually, didn't they? In like 2008, maybe, or something.
Yeah, it was a private investor. He brought it was all his own cars, and then one of the actors actually crashed his Enzo in one of the test filming things, and it ended up being this movie. Well, that movie flopped immensely.
No, there was a comedian, Eddie Griffin, crashed it.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, that movie did ridiculously bad. It was poorly written. It was poorly done. I was amazed that it got to where it was, but continued flops like Need for Speed, stuff like that. That I think really did put the emphasis on going, do we want to invest in something that's going to lose us? I'm going to put 38 million in it and I'm going to lose 29 of it. Like, yeah, that's just no good. You know what I mean?
Here it is right here.
Oh man, that is horrifying to even look at. Look at that.
And crashed it.
Yeah.
$1 million is a pile of junk tonight. An actor practicing for a charity race accidentally crashed it as the camera rolling. Greg Phillips is live in Irwindale with a video. Greg.
Paul, this Ferrari Enzo was worth $1.2 million a few hours ago. But take a look at it. This is what's left. The rare car was brought here for a movie premiere.
Yeah, I was doing like
in a matter
premiere.
of seconds, it was total. $1 million mistake.
Please show it. There it is. Yep.
As actor Eddie Griffin got comfortable behind the wheel of the rare Ferrari Enzo in a practice run. You want one more practice? That would prove to be a bad move.
One more practice.
One tight turn later, $1.2 million car was history when Griffin slammed it into the wall.
Oh my God. I forgot how violent it was.
Yep.
He's lucky he didn't go through the windshield.
Up by paramedics at the scene and walked away from the high-speed
Look
crash.
at him. Oh shit.
Yeah, I like the look too. Yeah.
Driving skills.
Undercover brother's good at karate and all the rest of that, but brother can't drive.
The accident happened while Griffin and other stars, including Jermaine Dupri, Jackie Chan, and others, practiced for a charity race to promote the new movie Redline.
That was the guy.
After the wreck,
If you rewind it a little,
to check out the
guy that's hugging Jackie Chan, that's his car. It's that guy right there to the right.
The accident happened while
it's his
Griffin
car.
and other
That's
stars,
his car.
including
All his
Jermaine
cars.
Dupri, Jackie Chan, and others practiced for
That
a
guy right
charity
there.
race to promote
I'm
the
sure
new
he
movie
wasn't
Redline.
hugging him
After the wreck,
Eddie
Chan
Griffin
couldn't
after
resist coming to our live
Well,
truck
actually,
to
I
check
actually
out the
talked to
footage
that guy.
of Griffin's $1 million
Mhm.
mishap.
Look at Jackie Chan. Oh man, that's gonna be a big mistake.
Crazy. A bunch of crazy people.
Daniel Sadek is the producer of the new
Sadek,
movie
yep.
and the owner of the now total $1 million Ferrari.
Told you.
I'm speechless about that because I really like the car. But
He wants to kill him. He said.
Oh yeah, he
it is
does.
what it is.
We hate to lose that car, but, you know, as long as he's all right, that's all that matters.
Griffin says for now he has no plans on giving up the day job.
That thing was
Nah, just,
1.9 million when he crashed.
Probably a good idea. Back live, only 400 Ferrari Enzos were ever made. By the way, 2 Porsche GTs were also totaled in the filming of Redline.
On
They
purpose.
were worth $500,000 each. We are live in Irwindale tonight. Greg Phillips, CBS 2 News.
That's it.
Yeah, so come to find out, so Sadek had done, I forgot what he wanted. I think he did real estate, but he did some other stuff. Come to find out, the money that he had was all like, it was almost like fake or whatever.
Really?
And yeah, there was a big crash or something happened later, and it all came out. And it was funny that he was like, he was in the group. He's kind of one of the end guys. And so everybody knew who he was. You could talk to him and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden one day he disappeared. And we're like, what the heck is going on? What's going on with this dude? Right. And then all of a sudden it all came out. And it was like, and part of the reason that his screw up happened was because he financed that movie and it lost so much money. So now he has this hole that he's trying to fill, but he's now it's like a Ponzi scheme or something. He's trying to fill it with his own.
So he faked it till he made it, but he didn't make it.
He didn't. Once he made that movie, that was it. He could have kept going if he hadn't made that movie. Like he would have just. He had just kept rolling. His collection was huge. Like I want to say, even had like I think he had one of the first like Koenigseggs or something like that. Like he had some crazy cars in that collection, and yeah, like you said, one day it was over.
But wait, did he own those cars or he didn't?
Yeah. He owned them, but like it was all bought with, I want to say, dirty money, if you will.
Wow.
And it was all all his cars got taken, all his stuff got taken.
Do you have to go to court and stuff like that, or
I don't know I don't remember the full story. It's been a long time, but yeah, like he basically what happened was he lost everything. Like it was one day he had all this stuff, he had all this real estate, he was in, and the next he was nobody. Like it was.
Mike says, "I'd love to see what he's driving now. Probably an Uber."
Probably yeah. If the most he's probably got is an old like '93 Camry or something. But you know these guys, I hate to say it, like they do. It's funny because you see them in these negatives, but they all bounce back. It's like Blazarian recently just went through all his troubles, and everybody's like, "Well, you're not real. It's all barred and everything's fake or whatever." But watch, he'll bounce back. He won't be the same way he was before. But I still saw him on the gambling circuit doing exactly with all the high profile people. It just you can't, once you're in it, you can't get rid of you. You know what I mean? You're always.
Yeah, I think a lot of his money is
it's all dad's money.
I'm speculating. I think a lot of his family money too. So.
Exactly. Yeah. It's trust fund stuff. And that's the thing is when you have, you can pull so much from that monster, and that's you put it over here and you go, okay, that's going to keep trickling in. As long as you don't touch that big chunk, it's going to keep flowing. But I just think he could have done it so many different ways than doing.
He was a genius, though. I mean, a genius in the sense of this. He got so big on IG. That's what brought so much attention, because he was doing things like cars and women and boats and cigars, and like he knew all those pleasure sensors to hit in the male brain.
It was his wheelhouse.
Right, and bring people over and figure this guy out. Now, as far as his poker playing and stuff like that, I've heard mixed things about it. He may say he's a brilliant poker player, but I've heard he's allegedly lost a lot of money playing poker. So
my thing for those guys, and really, he went in and tried to make his own product, I think it was, and whatever it was, it wasn't good. Like we were just thinking, okay, whatever. it's almost like you want to tell them, like, you have this money and you have this IG clout, if I guess you could say it. Use that the same way for oh God, who's the guy that does Deadpool?
Oh, yeah.
Like, why is Ryan Reynolds? Anyway, I don't
Ryan
know
Reynolds.
why.
Mint Mobile. He owns Mint Mobile now.
Well, he's a Mint Mobile. He's got a wine thing. He's got all this stuff, and he's got a YouTube channel that all he does is make these funny videos. And Mint Mobile does well. I'm not saying it's the best product out there, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't know it. But he'll may have a company like that. He'll build it up, and then he'll do what he did to his other brand and sell it, get a return of like 20 million or whatever. He invested maybe $1 million to get it working. What's the problem? And somebody will take Mint and go back, and they'll probably screw it up and can buy it back, rebuild it. And they were talking about how Ryan can get this stuff and turn it into gold and then offload it and go to something else. And it's just big potential. If Blazarian had used that clout to kind of do something with that and make something different. And
I'm sure Ryan Reynolds has, good marketing managers and managers around him that's handling where, Blazarian's kind of on his own, doing his own thing and kind of run by his own rules, So, but I'll tell you, if you want to listen to some interesting stories, watch some of his interviews that he has on YouTube, because it's almost like a lot of the stuff he says is so out there and unbelievable. I'm like, did that shit really happen? Like,
and I think a lot of it did. Like, there comes a point when things get so crazy that, like,
allegedly, maybe a lot of it is bullshit.
Right. Well, yeah, I just know a lot of stuff that the state said on Gumball. You would be like, that didn't happen. The one that gets me to this day, which I did not believe for the longest time, is that the Gumballers were being hijacked in Russia. So they went through this Russian area and they were hijacked. And then there was a video on it someplace, and they were like, yeah, we got hijacked. And I was like, you gotta be kidding. Like, that didn't. Well, I guess it did. So, and I guess they got
the arrests and the tickets and it's crazy. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Crashing cars. I mean, there was like the ticket. It was, what was the one the guy get the Koenigsegg CCX? I remember seeing the ticket. It was so scary. They sent it to me and I was just like, that can't be real. 245 miles per hour in like a 70 or 85 mile per hour zone in Vegas, in Nevada. And I'm like, how much I forgot how it was, but they prorated the ticket. So it wasn't as high as I thought. So it was like a $2,400 ticket. And the guy was like kind of depressed because it was prorated. And then they did another one, I think, in Canada, and they ended up arresting him for it, but they gave him the ticket for it. And it was like a prorated thing. So it's like, here's a ticket that didn't mean much. Right. Yeah. Joyride. There you go.
I got Dustin. Yeah. Dustin signed it for me.
Nice. There you go.
I actually wrote him, probably 2 years ago. I said, hey, I'm a big fan of the Mischief series. Wondering if there's anything, I could buy something. He's like, don't buy anything. I'll just send you out. So he sent me out a bunch of swag, and he signed CD, and he sent me out a t-shirt, which is kind of
nice.
cool.
I want to see a t-shirt.
Techademics t-shirt.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
That's the good stuff, man. That 97 yellow BMW M3 was the shit that they took out on the Gumball, and that was the car. So
got stolen later, and then I didn't believe it. I didn't know. I was like, did they redid? What do you mean it got stolen? I was like, yeah, it's a different car. And I was like, that one was blue, and then they painted it yellow, and then they did. It's like, what? And they didn't even finish it. I think for what was it, Invasion or whatever.
Yeah.
So the car was like not even done completely, but they were like, yeah, we're taking it. Dude, Dado was a nutcase. He was like, I don't even know what was the deal. Like, everybody says, oh, yeah, people drive crazy. That dude drove like that 24/7. Most of these guys will drive the events. They'll be crazy. They'll like, yeah, it's all good. Dado, he would drive down the street and just drift. And I'm like,
crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see the guy? There's a guy now that just ran the Gumball and did like he did like a world record, and he ran from the East Coast and did the complete Gumball in less than like 28 hours or something like that. He drove straight through, and what he had was, they set up a bunch of computers in the car. He took what was it? What's the cop cars? The Ford Shows or the Ford Taurus or whatever. So he painted it to look like a state trooper's car. He put chevrons on it, the reflective chevrons.
Yes.
He made it look like a state trooper's car, and he had all these computers so they could monitor all the police action stuff. And he had a spotter in the back seat of the car that had like a lens so they could see where the cops were. And they went nonstop all the way through. They peed in bottle, like they had a thing that they made.
I
So
hear
they
about
could pee,
that. Yeah, this is crazy.
And they literally did not stop. Like I think they stopped like once to get food for like 2 minutes or something like that. And they did it in less than like 28 hours or something like that.
Yeah, I just did the Haggerty just put out a really good video about the Cannonball Run Lamborghini, which actually was the reason that the original Cannonball Run was stopped. The guy purchased the car to go on the run, and the guy that ran it said, "I don't want to do it anymore because I'm
sorry, Cannonball Run, not the gumball. Cannonball Run.
Yeah. So, but this guy right here, I saw at the end of the video Ed Bolian talking about this cop car thing, but I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, check this out. I'm sure CBS doesn't.
While the movie Cannonball Run was slapstick, it was based on real-life efforts to race from coast to coast. Last month, a seemingly unbeatable record was broken.
Alex Roy.
3 car enthusiasts made it from a garage here in New York City to a hotel in Redondo Beach, California at a heart-pounding speed. With a top speed of 193 miles per hour and an average of 103 for more than a day, drivers Arnie Toman and Doug Tabbitt, along with spotter Berkeley Chadwick, are the new Cannonball Run record holders. As first reported by Road and Track, the team made the 2,800-mile journey from New York to Los Angeles in 27 hours, 25 minutes, shaving more than an hour off the old mark.
That's 140 average.
Yeah.
Well, in the movie,
I said gumball, I meant Cannonball.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Gumball,
the team rode in a souped-up Mercedes, modified over the course of 2 years, specifically with setting the record in mind.
We've got a couple radar detectors, a CB radio, a police scanner. We use gyro-stabilized binoculars, and something new for this trip that's never been done is we used a thermal scope on the roof of the car, so we're able to see anything warm on the side of the road waiting out for us.
They were also aided by a network of spotters driving ahead of them and reporting road conditions, along with the placement of police speed traps.
We knew we had a shot pretty much the whole time, and thankfully nothing bad happened. There was no altercations with the police or anything to slow us down.
But the feat is drawing criticism from safety experts. The Governor's Highway Safety Association says speed is widely deemed culturally acceptable by the motoring public. We need to change that narrative and make speeding as socially unacceptable as drunk driving. Tillman maintains the team never put any other drivers.
I think the worst thing is they went on public TV and
we
they
don't
talked
pass
about
people
this.
at a high rate of speed simply because it's dangerous. And if we were to do that to drive recklessly, they're just going to call the police.
Alex had a plane spotter, but he was about 15 years ago. Look at this.
Well, the other thing is Alex.
You may have seen in that picture there, the GPS screen. They stopped for a total. And obviously, do not try this. Do not.
20 minutes to stop. So here's the car.
Guys, watch out! I just got my doors blown off.
Yeah.
In the first place, before the Mercedes, but seeing that AMS did not have a bunch of parts for the S6 like they did the E63, I wanted to run a full alpha packaged car. And at the time, they didn't do tuning and really only had a couple parts. So that's why I chose the E63. But the reason I wanted to do the S6 is it can kind of be disguised as a Ford Taurus.
Yeah.
So seeing we were pretty late in the whole quarantine thing, we were already into May. Traffic was already really picked up, and really the only advantage we were going to have would be leaving Manhattan at any time we wanted. So the plan was to leave at 6 p.m. and get through Denver before 8 a.m. the next morning.
Look at this.
Here we go to New York.
Look at this. Look at the badge.
My former co-driver, Dunadell, who ran with me in the C2C and Ultra Beige.
Have you seen this car? You haven't seen it, right? Oh, this is wild.
Because Berkeley was unavailable and Dunadell was absolutely ready to go, waiting for the call.
My Cannonball story started in about middle school when I read about Alex Roy's record, and then progressed when Ed's record broke in 2013. I remember vividly meeting Doug Tabbitt at a Cars and Coffee in Cleveland. It was July 4th, if I remember correctly. And essentially, we were drawn to each other by both of us having antennas and screens in our cars. My GLI and his Corvette were both very reminiscent of vehicles we had seen and looked up to, you know, Alex's M5 and Ed's CL, all vehicles that we, you know, strive to emulate almost. Doug and I became fast friends and maintained a good friendship over the next couple of years.
eBay Motors, they have all the right parts at the right prices. Whether I'm on 2 wheels,
years, and it really blossomed when Doug tapped me to be his co-driver in the Monte Carlo, now dubbed Ultra Beige, for the 2017 C2C Express. Of course, that run ended rather haphazardly in Indiana on the side of the road at a transmission shop of all places. And then we progressed to 2018, of course, finishing, also heartbreaking, but still winning in Ultra Beige. And then moving on to 2019, unfortunately, when Doug and Arnie were looking for a third co-pilot, I was unable to make it. I was starting a job that week, and I decided to, you know, pass the torch, and I gave the opportunity, which, of course, the 2019 C2C became a trial run for the 27-25 run later that year in the E63. So as soon as I heard that Doug, Arnie, and Berkeley had set the record, I was ecstatic. But also part of me had a little bit of a heartstring pull, and I felt that, you know, the next opportunity I got to, you know, if anything ever happened, I would be lining up at Doug's door and Arnie's door to be the third man. And lo and behold, as soon as 2638 came out, I remember calling Doug and said, when are we going? When are we going? And he sort of said, well, got to talk to my wife and whatnot. A few days later, I got the call, and we were headed to New York.
And it was eerie in New York City because there's no cars, but there was people and bikes everywhere. And the new risk was driving through an intersection. Even if you had a green light, you might have bicyclists just running the red lights. It was like there's no traffic laws anymore. You know, cars didn't have the right of way. So that presented a new challenge. But because of the lack of traffic, we were able to make it out of Manhattan in 4.5 minutes and got stuck at one red light. And that annoyed us, which is crazy because usually Manhattan is just, you're stopped all the way out. So we quickly got up to speed and we're on the way.
Honestly, it almost felt too easy. Like it didn't even feel like this was even going to count. Because up to then we had, you know, no problems at all.
Well, people did complain.
Incredible team of scouts lined up that had our backs, that wanted to see us get the record, and that helped us out in Pennsylvania because
now I want to let everybody know we don't condone any type of this behavior on the channel. Do all this stuff at your own risk.
We had just passed one of our scouts, so we called him and said, "Hey, we need you to come take one for the team," because we had no idea how long we might be stuck behind them. And so he came flying up and got ready to pass one of them, and the trooper got off at the exit. So we took off again. 5 minutes later, get stuck behind another one. Call him up. Hey, it's your time. So he comes flying up and gets ready to pass him again, and he turns around in the median. So thankfully, we didn't have to pay his ticket for him, but we were able to continue on and
I think I've seen this one before too, but like,
you can certainly.
Was this what year was this? When was this?
So across the Midwest, we were
I don't
hauling.
remember.
That was
what's the date on the lower left?
125 mile an hour averages across multiple states, and we were able to get our average to Denver.
So it was during pandemic, I think they did it,
which is
or just
exactly
coming
where
out
we
of
needed to be sub 26 hours.
And that's what it's going to be.
The biggest problems with
again.
this car is at 160 miles an hour, there's this crazy, like air buffeting, like whining noise that you just can't drive faster than that, or otherwise it'll drive you crazy. So that definitely kept our top speed down. So at no point did we exceed 175 miles an hour.
We got to about Iowa, had a hiccup. I honestly thought we were done. I had wanted to get Michelin Pilot 4S tires, but they were on back order. So we settled on the Continental Extreme DWS, which was a great idea if we had done the run in April, but we were in May now and it was super hot out. And so they were a little bit spongy for performance driving in warm weather. All of a sudden the car was just like super vague and almost uncontrollable. I'd like turn the wheel to change lanes and I'd turn back and there'd be like a delay. And then there was this vibration in the front end and it was all over the board. And I'm like, I mean, it's got to be tires. It feels like tires that have just gone completely to crap. Or like when you overheat your tires on the track and they're done the heat cycle and they're just like, you're just all over the board. That's what it felt like. And I'm like, there's no way these tires are that bad, but maybe that's it. That's got to be it. Arnie was asleep in the back And I told Dunedell, I'm like, I think we just got to like try to let some air out of the tires. Like maybe that'll help give us a little more grip. But in the back of my mind, I'm going, this is crazy. If they're this shot already, we're never going to make it through the mountain pass. I mean, we're like 1,200 miles into the run. My gut just sank because I'm like, we're done. This is not going to work. This is a Band-Aid. And Arnie woke up and he's like, what the heck is going on? Why are you going 60 miles an hour? Like, this car is awful. It's got a mind of its own. And I literally just like took the wheel and did this and just kind of like threw the car, and it did this. It went back and forth both directions. He's like, man, that's crazy. What is wrong? And I'm like, I have no freaking idea. This car is driving itself. And he's like, wait a minute. Do you have the like lane change assist thing on? No. I'm like, I don't know. What's that? And he's like, there's an icon on the dash. It like has the 2 lanes. I'm like, yeah, that's on. He's like, you moron. That's what the vibration is. Every time you get to the lanes, it's giving you a vibration. It's trying to put you back into the lane. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it took us probably 10 minutes to try to figure out how to turn this darn thing off. And we finally got it turned off and we're on our way. But that was our big moment of like,
look at that,
we're done.
Dude,
this ain't going to happen. And it was all just to my idiocy and lack of understanding with technology, because the newest car I own is a 2000 Mercedes. It has heated seats and rain sensing wipers. Ooh.
So to me in cannonballing, the most important thing is safety. And just like the 27-25 run, we weren't passing people at excessive speeds. There was no passing on the shoulder. And a lot of people are dumbfounded. You know, they think it's like the movies, like it's a real life Dukes of Hazzard or something. Which it's far less dramatic than that. And given the less traffic, it was quite a bit easier.
Arnie is a master of disguise. The E63 was awesome. The S6 was awesomer because it sort of looked like a patrol car. However, I'm not sure which was a better disguise, because the E63 became known as the silver passenger car because that's what was described over the scanner when we got called in Iowa. Perfect. Could be anybody. However, the S6, while it probably kept us from getting called in multiple times because people mistook it for a police car, it bit us when we got called in Colorado because the person was incredibly descriptive and even called out the unit number. And all of the, he knew it was an Audi dressed up to look like a patrol car, and that's what came over the scanner. So we're like, well, there's no mistaking that they are looking for us. So Arnie's driving. I'm frantically looking for a way around because we heard the cop report back, and he goes, yeah, I'm at M4 such and such. I'll be waiting for him. So I'm going, all right, we got to get off on surface streets. There's like 13 miles to the border of Utah. So let's just take
quicker,
surface
have a good
streets
night, man.
to get around this and get there.
We're gonna be wrapping up soon anyway.
Watch Team USA in action.
Oh, another commercial. Anyway.
Yeah.
A little bit of the story, the Cannonball Run guys.
I think it was funny because they just did the one in Haggerty, and remember in the Cannonball they had the ambulance. Remember that?
Yeah.
So I did not know that was based on a true story. So what they did was they were drinking the night before. They found a doctor and was like, do you want to go on this trip? And the guy was like, sure. And I mean, I'm guessing that he must have been drunk because he had no idea what they were going on. Gets him on the drive. The guy that ran the Cannonball was the one that was driving it. He has his wife as the person on the gurney in the back. They're going fast in this ambulance. They get pulled over in the first leg of the run. The cop comes up and goes, what are you guys going so fast for? You know, he's like, well, we have a patient in the back. And the cop is like, what are you talking about? Like, just fly them there. Why can't you fly them? And he's like, I don't know, talk to the doctor. So they slide the thing over, and he looked at his wife. His wife looked dead. She looked pallid, and she's in the seat wrapped up. You know what I mean? And they look over at the doctor, and they're like, why can't that you guys fly? And he was like, she has a pulmonary pulsatile problem of her lungs. And if they put them on pressurized flight, it's going to kill her. We definitely need to get going. And he was like, the cop was like, well, you know what? You guys just kind of slow it down a little bit. We'll talk to you soon. And I remember him looking back at the thing and going like, in the video, he's talking and he goes, that's the moment we knew we could do this. He was like, so we're all in or nothing. Like if this guy pulls us over, it's the end of the run. But if we can make it, we can do it. And they tricked him. And they said the other one was the guys that dressed up like priests. And he was like, they did it too. They got pulled over as priests, and the cop's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Father. I didn't know I was pulling over a priest." And they're like, "No, it's okay, my son. We forgive you. You know, we're rushing to this thing or whatever." And they got let go too. And that's all that stuff ended up in the movie. And he was saying, he goes, the actors in the movie didn't know how real it was. And I was like, funny enough, I didn't know that. So it was like, yeah, it's an awesome read.
Good stuff, man. This was good. It's a good show. I'm gonna probably wrap this one up because we're over the hour mark. I like to try to keep them down to an hour, but I want to appreciate everybody for hanging out with us this evening. You know, we'll do one of these again pretty soon. And any parting words, Primo?
That's it. Drive safe, drive fun, you guys, but always remember to drive.
Yeah. And anyway, guys, please go over and check out the Executive Automotive Society YouTube channel. Give them a like and a thumbs up, and please subscribe and hit the bell notification. This is going to end this show for this evening. We'll see you guys next time on the next Throttle Thursday. Right now, Primo and I are going to jump out on the mothership. We'll see you next time. Peace.